All right, sometimes you find a project and sometimes a project finds you. I came outside the other day and found that it looks like the seals on this jack have failed. I left it holding up a piece of exhaust, and when I came out in the morning it was had collapsed all the way down. So it's time for a rebuild. This particular jack is, I don't know, 20 plus years old. It wasn't a terribly expensive jack at the time, but it seems to be a pretty solid jack, and it's been used and abused. From what I've seen, there's a lot of jacks that are built very similarly to this one. So you've got what I'll call a valve body here. You got your plunger that's doing the work, and you've got an actual jack underneath, the large piston that's pushing the whole mechanism up. Let me flip this guy up on its side. So there's the jack itself. You can see it's a little bit greasy. I've got a rebuild kit on the way, but in the meantime I can start taking this guy apart. Assuming I like the rebuild kit, I'll provide a link in the description, and at the end of the video I'll tell you my thoughts on the kit. But yeah, so I think this should apply to many different types of jacks. I'll walk through rebuilding this one with the kit, disassembly, putting it back together, all that. So step one is clean up. This guy is filthy. So I'm gonna get it cleaned up, and then we'll have it up on the workbench and we'll start taking it apart. All right, I'm gonna start disassembling this thing. This will probably be split up over a couple of sessions of working here. I'm going to take it apart as little as possible. I don't need to take apart any of the lift part or where the handle goes in. Take out these two bolts, matching two bolts on that side, this retainer bolt. I think all it's trying to do is keep things together. And then underneath there's two springs, one on the top, one on the bottom, and there should be a cotter pin holding the head of the jack into the lift mechanism. And I think that's going to be about it. So let's get started on that, and I'll probably time-lapse it so you don't have to slowly watch me take it apart. Okay, the piston came out when I was taking this thing apart. I should have been a little more careful and removed the pin on the jack first, but that's okay. So every part of this jack is dirty. I need to get it cleaned up. So dirt is the enemy of a hydraulic system. It'll eat away at the seals and it'll cause things to leak. So before you start assembling anything, make sure you get all your parts good and clean. So from here, I need to wait for my rebuild kit to show up before I take this jack apart any further. I want to match up the old parts and the new parts as they're coming off the jack, just to make sure I've got everything that I need. Off camera, I'm going to get this jack cleaned up, and we can pick up after that. I have the jack cleaned up a bit. I took out the plug. This one is a plastic plug, but sometimes there'll be a metal screw-in plug, something like that. The seal kit came in. I have a number of O-rings, the piston head, a couple of O-ring retainers. So far it looks like a good kit. Next I'm going to take out the release valve. This is held in with a screw and a stopper. After that, I'm going to take off the tank nut. That's the hard part of the project. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to take this screw, plug, whatever you call it, out. Once I get it out, there should be 2 check balls inside. There they are. The small one goes on the inside and the large one on the outside. I wanted to get that plug out of the way so I can clamp this in my vise. Then I'm going to attempt to use this 24-inch adjustable wrench. The tank nuts are on mega tight, so I hope this works. I'm going to do that off camera so you don't have to watch me fight it. Alright, I'll be back. Alright, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to come up with a plan for getting this top nut that holds everything together off. My original plan was not sufficient. I put it in my vise, trying to turn it with that 24-inch adjustable wrench, and my vise just started to spin. It couldn't hold the torque. So, 52 millimeter socket, 2-foot breaker bar, 5-foot pipe, and I had this clamped in a hydraulic press. That seemed to do the trick, and that's what I'll do to put it back on. I don't know the torque, but it's tight. 4, 5, 600 foot-pounds, I would guess. So if you're going to take this on, consider that. Make sure you got a plan for actually getting this apart. So I haven't actually completely undone this yet, so we'll do that now. There we go. It's the main piston. You can see, maybe you can see if I hold it in the right place. This is pretty much smooth at this point. If I can pick up the new one, you can see how it's got the flare on the end there. It keeps the pressure in. Anyway, now this should just be resting in there, I think. Yeah, so let me get this part cleaned up and we'll continue the disassembly. Okay, one piece that you missed here was me taking the main piston here out of this housing, and it wasn't that exciting. It just pushes straight out. And not much to see there. So what we do have an O-ring here and an O-ring here. This O-ring is mostly just going to be a scraper to keep the dust out. I do believe. So what am I going to use? Let me get a pick, I think. All right, couple of picks. Alright, I do need to clean this up. It's got some grit in there, so I'll clean that in a moment. See if I can match up. Okay. So there's no real part numbers or anything. It's just kind of matching up. That looks right. And this is a big, thick guy. Okay, I clearly see that one over there. So those go to the top. So one thing I haven't talked about is this. This is a pressure relief valve. So it controls pressure relief. So if you put too much force on the jack, it would bypass. So these are set from the factory, so don't just start unscrewing this guy. Understand where it's at so you can get it back to the same place. So either screw it all the way down, whatever your method is. Or don't touch it. So this one is just, I don't know, just barely turned from all the way seated. Got a plastic seal. Well, I'll take it back. This one's not doing much. There's actual valve in there. So I'm not gonna mess with that one. But I will clean that up. Nothing in this hole. This one's got a retainer and a, yeah, there's the retainer and an O-ring. And that looks pretty good. This one has an O-ring. And this is where the main piston goes, so I do want to get this one replaced. So it looks like this has got a retainer in there too, maybe. Yep, there's a retainer. There's the O-ring. Can we get this retainer out? Sorry, it's hard to put this where you can see it and I can see it and everybody's happy. But it's set in a groove there, and it's going to be a little challenging. Alright, that's that. Okay. Again, there's nothing here. I expect if I were to take this off, I'd find an O-ring on the bottom. But I don't think I'm going to bother. So one thing I will say is when I was unscrewing this, the vent hole, well, there it comes off. Okay, so this is tapered. There's a press fit in there. I'm going to put the hole, so when this is laying in the jack, it's like this. I'm going to put it straight up. Some people might put it off to the side. So we'll come back to that. Right, and yep, like I guessed, O-ring. Now when you start putting this back together, don't use a pick. Just use your hands. Okay, so I've got some more cleanup to do. Again, I want to get this pretty clean. And I think we're ready for oh no, I've got to take the piston off here. Let's take a look at this. This should just slide, I think. Alright, now reassembly, just reverse order, and try to match up your O-rings as you go. Looks pretty dainty. Look pretty similar. Right, and then that one should compress right on there. That looks pretty good. Now when I tighten this, I don't know how I'm going to keep this from spinning, but do our best. One thing I didn't show was there was one other O-ring on here. It's this guy. I don't know if I'm seeing an obvious match. That looks it. Close. That's probably it. So let's hold on that. It's a piston. These are, this one's actually a little bit shallower. I think that's okay. There we go. So now it's just a matter of pressing it down. And you want the flare on the bottom, what will be the bottom of the piston. Okay, so that snapped in place. So that should be good. And you can really feel on these old O-rings, they're getting hard compared to these are nice and soft. Right, so put this back. This one just sits pretty loose in there. So I might actually go ahead and no, we got to put the check balls back in here. So small goes first, then the large, then this guy goes in. Right, the check valve. So this does have a hole drilled through it for fluid flow. So I did clean that out. Let's just spin it down. Different jacks will be put together different ways. It's a reverse thread. But if you can see this, it's just a little metal spacer, but it's got enough room to allow the piston to come up a ways. Put a little more oil on this piston. Good to go. Put a little oil on the top of the piston. Let's not do that. Trying to get this where you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so for the next part, I'm going to have to take this back to, I need to remember to tighten that down. For the next part, I need to take this back to my other shop. I don't have a press here at the house. So I'm not going to film that, but I'm going to put the press on here, clamp it into place, get the big socket on here, tighten everything down. And then I think we'll be ready to put the jack back together. Well, we'll prime the pump here, and then we'll put everything back together. All right. So for the kit, this is who I got the kit from, HCRC Now. Here you go. It's got the web address on there. So far, this looks like a great kit. I've got a few extra pieces, a few extra seals, which is wonderful. Everything looks good, so as long as the jack actually works when we're done, we should be good to go. Alright, filling the jack. As you can see, I've got a mess here, so I overfilled it, but the proper way to do it, on this jack, the fill plug is on the lower third of the jack. Some jacks may be higher. If your fill plug is up high, you probably want to fill it till it just oozes out. But generally, if you have your jack laying horizontally, you want the oil level to be just above the inner shaft tube, whatever you call that. So it's a quarter of an inch below the fill hole. Once you've got it filled up, I like these big syringes. You can get them online and get a 12 pack for a couple of bucks. That way you can get it in there pretty easily. So once it's in there, then you can cycle the jack a few times. It helps if I close the valve. Alright, so I'm not going to go through all of it. I've already primed it. Then bring the piston back down, which I might not be able to do like that. There. And once you've done that, be careful at this point. I've made a mistake, and that's why there's oil everywhere. With the air in the system, you might even see the piston here pop up. So it's going to be under pressure. So just kind of stick your screwdriver in, keep your thumb on here to keep it from shooting out, and just push a little bit, and you'll hear it let the air pressure out. And then you can push your piston back in, let the rest of the air pressure out. And then do that process, 2-3 times. You can tell when the air is out of the system. When the air is in the system, the piston will be the actual ram will be real jerky when it's going up and down. And that's it. So this one's all primed. I need to wipe up all this extra oil on it. So we're ready to put the jack back together. So I'll do that, which is just reverse order. Oh, one other thing. Make sure you use hydraulic and jack oil. It's the right thing to use. It's safe for the seals and the jack. It doesn't compress. It's safe. So I'm going to put the jack back together. I'm going to skip showing you that part because it's really just bolting things back together. And then we'll test it out. So we'll come back when I've got the jack together and we can test it out. Alright, I apologize. The lighting on the side of the garage is not great. Anyway, we're going to test out the jack here. So this car has subframe connectors, so it's pretty solid underneath. I wouldn't normally pick a car up this way, but this one's good like this. And it's pretty high off the ground already, so I've got a chocolate wood in there. Again, I wouldn't normally pick the car up this way, it's just for demonstration. So let's give it a go. Good one up. So we're a few inches up off the jack stands. Let it back down slowly, hopefully. All right, there you go. So, summary. All in all, this wasn't a horrible project. The only real hard part, I would say, is getting the tank nut off. Be prepared for that. It's on tight. You have to tighten it back up tight. And then a few lessons learned. So if I did it a second time, it would be easier. Watch till the end. See if I can include a couple of bloopers for you on mistakes I made. Hopefully you can learn from that. All right, I think that's it. Thanks for watching.